Hello and welcome to a new episode of Adobe Creative Cloud TV. My name is Terry White, and in this episode we're going to take a look at the ins and outs of how to use the various slideshow options in Adobe Muse. So I'm going to show you the most common ones used, how to use them, even one that's kind of hidden, so that you get a full understanding of how the slideshows work. So let's jump right in. First thing we'll do is we'll go ahead and create a brand new site from scratch. So we'll just go create, we'll say new site. It will give us the default, and we'll just go ahead and the only thing we're going to change is that we want it to be high DPI, and we want, I just like to work in columns for the sake of alignment and just making things look great on the page. But let's go ahead and just click OK on that, and that will give us our basic site. Now what I want to do is I want to create two more pages. I'm going to create a page called I don't know, we'll call this one Services. And then we'll do one more called Galleries. All right, so now we have our 3 pages. Next thing we'll do is, of course, we'll put some like elements that we want to be across all the pages on the master page. So I usually like to design with some kind of visual element at the top of the page. It could be a rectangle, it could be a logo, it could be a logo on a rectangle, it could be whatever you want. Let's just go ahead and get a nice color for that. And now that we've got our color in place, let's just go ahead and grab a logo from my library. Let's go grab my logo here. And here it is. All right, so now we got the logo in place. We're just going to go ahead and pull this up, make it smaller. And last but not least, we need a menu. So let's go to our widget library. Let's go to our menus. Horizontal menu, and we'll just go ahead and drag that out, and we'll put that up here for now. And of course we can redesign that menu to our heart's content, taking away the boxes, changing the fonts, whatever we want to do. But now the main thing for this to really work well is to understand and work in layers, because the first slideshow we're going to do is going to be a full screen slideshow, and the aspect or the caveat with full screen is that it takes over the entire screen. So what I wouldn't want the full screen slideshow to do is take over everything that we've got here. So what I'm going to do before I leave the master page is I'm going to go to the layers panel, and since everything is already on this layer, I'm just going to call this layer navigation. That's our navigation layer. Everything's already on it. Now we'll create a new layer, and we'll call this new layer, double click, we'll call it Slideshows, and the slideshows will always be on the layer underneath the navigation. So we'll just pull that layer down, so that way slideshows will always tuck underneath everything else that's on the screen. Okay, so now we've got our master page. We can close it. We can head back to the site where everything is already there, and the next thing we'll do is we'll go to the home page and we'll test out some of the options I was telling you about. So let's go to the home page, and here what we want to do is go ahead and bring in our full screen slideshow. So we'll go back to the widget library. We're done with the content panel for now. We'll go to the widget library and we'll go to slideshows, and you see basic blank full screen like box and thumbnails. Well, technically there's really only one slideshow in Muse. All of these are just various starters or presets, if you will call them, to get you started. In other words, if you want a full screen slideshow, then it's got all the full screen options turned on already. If you were to drag on a blank slideshow and then turn on the full screen option, it would be a full screen slideshow. So these are just kind of just a way to get you started quickly without there just being one slideshow that you have to then go and change all the options every single time. So let's go ahead and drag on the full screen slideshow. And when I drag on the full screen slideshow, as I said, it takes over the entire screen. But because we put that on the slideshow layer, it's underneath everything else. Now, if I were to go to the layers panel real quick and turn off navigation, you would see that the full screen slideshow comes in with its own left and right navigation button and a counter. Well, those items can either be turned on, turned off, or moved around. So for example, let's go to the slideshow options, and what I don't need is the counter. I don't need to know how many images I have. So So let's go ahead and turn it off. The next thing is you have these left and right navigation buttons. Well, we can pick those up and we can put those anywhere we want. So I just want to move those down. I don't want them at the top of the screen. And then when I pick this one up, without clicking on it, there it is. I can pick it up, and as soon as I get it lined up, we got smart guides that kick in, and I can go ahead and put this all the way on the right side of the screen. Now, before we leave this set of options, or the navigation left and right, remember they originally were both in the upper left-hand corner. That's because, and that's the way it was designed, but they were pinned to that upper left-hand corner. So the left one is now pinned in the upper left corner, but the right one is also still pinned in the upper left hand corner. So I'm going to just change the pin to the upper right corner. That way, that will stick to that side of the screen, and the other one will stick to the other side of the screen, no matter how wide or narrow the person's browser is. And last but not least, if we select both of them, we can go in and we can, for example, either take the fill out or certainly lower the opacity of that fill, so it's just not a big white box sitting there. But we kind of give people something, visual, that they see a little bit of white there, knowing something to click on. Okay, so that's our full screen slideshow. And then of course, last but not least, we'd want images to go in it. So we go back to the slideshow options, the little blue triangle while the slideshow selected, and we can go ahead and click. And then we can go grab, I believe I put them in the demo. I went to the auto show in Michigan last week, and let's go ahead and just grab my auto show images. I spent a lot of time looking at concept cars, so these are going to be the Mercedes new F15 concept car. Okay, and then last but not least, let's go ahead and turn on the navigation layer. And if we were to preview our home page right now, this is what it would look like in the browser. Generates the HTML, opens up my default browser, and shows me my preview. And my slideshow is running. I still have my left and right navigation buttons, so I can go back and forth between the images, or I could turn off navigation and just let it run in the background. I could put other things on top. So that's the full screen slideshow. And full screen means no matter how big or how narrow or how skinny or how tall I make my browser, it will be full screen. Okay. So that's how the full screen slideshow works. Now, of course, you can still go back in. You can still go in the options. You can say you don't want it to autoplay. You can say you do want it to autoplay. You can tell it how many seconds you want. You can shuffle the order. You could turn off the navigation buttons. You can do a different type of transition. You could do a fade instead of a horizontal swipe or a vertical swipe. So you have all those options you can configure just about on any slideshow, but those are some of the ones you might want to look at for the full screen. Okay, next up, we got our home page done. Let's go to the services page. Now on the services page, I want to be able to put text below the slideshow about the services. So I don't want this one to be full screen, but I do want it to be what's called full width. And if you go to your slideshow widget library and the slideshow options, there's no full width slideshow. So how do we do a full width slideshow in Muse? Well, you can grab any one you want, except full screen, obviously. Let's go ahead and do blank, because I just like to start off with nothing. Now I'll grab the blank slideshow. I'll turn off all the stuff I don't want captions, don't want counter. We can have previous and next buttons if we want, but actually I'm even going to turn those off. And now what I do is simply reshape the container for the slides to be up here, and more importantly, touch the left side of the browser window in Muse and the right side. And when it touches the side, you'll get a little red guide letting you know you're touching the side, and you see the little pop-up there? It says width 100%. That's when you know you've got the 100% kicked in for the slideshow. You can make the height whatever you want or don't want, and of course you can keep putting content below it because it will never be any higher than your height. Now, of course, your images that you use, I'm only going to use the same set of images for each one of these. You have to keep that in mind that this is a full width slideshow and most people's browser windows are pretty wide. So you might want to go into Photoshop and make your images more wide than they are tall. Like for example, I would never want to put tall images or portrait images in this type of slideshow because they just won't look right, and more than likely they'll be cropped off. So let's go ahead and add images again. Again, we'll just add the same ones because it's really not about the images as much as it is about the techniques. So you'll see less of some images, more of other images, depending on the image aspect ratio and what you can see in that image. But that's a full width slideshow. So now if I were to go in, I can go back to Muse, grab my text frame. I can create a, we can create, oops, I didn't want to do that. Let's make it not a footer item. There we go. We'll go ahead and pull this down. And that's the good thing about my guides. And we have some text we can put in there. And we can duplicate this, put this one over here. And that way we can now fill these with whatever text we want. We can, oops, there we go. We can say whatever we want in these frames about our services. Okay, we'll just copy that. Paste, 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 paste. Come over here, same thing. Paste, 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 paste. Just to give you some sample text to work with. And of course, we'd want to probably keep those aligned at the top of each other. There we go. So now they're nice and aligned. And let's see what this page looks like in the browser. So preview page in browser. And we get that nice full width slideshow. Again, it may not show all of the image, but it's giving us a nice display that we can, again, if we want the user to navigate, we can put navigation buttons on the left and right. But you kind of see this on websites all the time where they're going between multiple images while you read the stuff or deal with the stuff at the bottom or above the slideshow. So that's the full width option. That's kind of hidden because there isn't a full width choice. All right, so let's go back to Muse and let's close the services page. And now let's go to the galleries page. In the galleries page, this is where you would typically maybe put in multiple slideshows. So now the question becomes, what kind of slideshow do you want? And some of the things I'm going to do here also apply to the full screen and full width slideshows. I'll talk about those options in a moment. So let's say, for example, I want a thumbnails, or actually, you know what? Let's start with blank. We'll start with blank again. I'll turn on some options and show you. So I'm going to start with a blank slideshow. And again, I can put this anywhere I want on the page. I can put whatever text I want next to it, whatever other images I want next to it. I can turn off any options I want. I don't want captions. I don't need a counter. I do want the navigation, so I can move the navigation around. Yep, I can put that wherever I want. And again, same thing. We would just go and load up this with images. Click the little folder, go grab, yes, the same car show. Go grab the same images, and here they come. Okay, so now this slideshow, we don't want to autoplay. We want the user to be able to click between them, but maybe we also want the user to be able to click on a specific image without having to go through all of them. Let's say there are 100 images in there. We don't want the user to have to click on 50 images to get to number 51. So let's go ahead and turn on thumbnails. Now when you turn on the thumbnails option, they'll just appear usually on the side, but you can do whatever you want with these thumbnails. For example, you can pick up, if you keep clicking and drill down, you can drill down to the thumbnail area. You can say, well, maybe I want the thumbnails underneath the slideshow. You can go ahead and reshape or resize it so it takes up whatever room you want it to take up. So those are my thumbnails, and the user can just click on the image they want to get to it. Now, while we've got the thumbnails up, the thumbnails are very important on all the slideshows, even if you're not going to use them. So even on the full screen slideshow and on the full width slideshow, there are times where I would bring up the thumbnails. Here's why. If you ever wanted to rearrange the images, you do it with the thumbnails. So for example, if I want this red one to be last, pick it up and rearrange it to be last. If I want to delete, let's say the first one, click on that thumbnail, hit your delete button on your keyboard or backspace on your keyboard. So that's how we control what images, that's how we control the images that are already in the slideshow. So if you wanted to rearrange the ones on a full screen slideshow or a full width slideshow, go to your slideshow options, turn on thumbnails long enough to do everything you want to do, then turn thumbnails back off again. And that way you use the thumbnails to control everything, but you don't have to have thumbnails on full screen and full width slideshows for the actual user. Okay, so that is the basic or blank slideshow, added images, turn on and off some options, and then of course we show thumbnails. Now let's bring over one more. Let's bring over the lightbox one. When I bring over the lightbox one, it's going to have thumbnails by default. So I'm going to go ahead and, again, let's make sure this is not a footer item. Good. I'm going to go ahead and pull, oops. Why am I not getting this to go down? Okay, let's do it the hard way. There we go. Just want to give myself some more room. And again, we put this on this side, for example. All right, so now we've got this slideshow with its thumbnails. And maybe we want to do the same thing. We want those thumbnails to be on the bottom and not the top. Now, what's the difference between the Lightbox slideshow and any of the other slideshows? And by the way, we don't need our footer to be that long. There we go. The difference is, and we can leave the sample images in for this one, but when we preview this page, it'll generate the HTML and show us the page in the browser. And notice we don't see the slideshow for the Lightbox one. Let's deal with this one first. We'll come back to the Lightbox. So this lets me navigate because we turned off autoplay. So it's just sitting there waiting for the user to navigate with the buttons or to click on the specific image they want to get to. So that's what thumbnails are for. Now let's go down and deal with Lightbox. All you'll have as Lightbox is the thumbnails. That's why the thumbnails default to the top of the slideshow, because users won't. If you saw just this, you may not even scroll down to see if there's any more. So it might be a good idea to keep the thumbnails at the top. And what this will do is when you click on an actual image, notice it darkens the rest of the page, anything that's on the rest of the page, text, images, video, widgets, whatever, is darkened. And then it shows you all the other options in the slideshow, the caption, the navigation, the counter, all the things that we left on, and the ability to go through those things. And if you click off of it, then it all goes away. So let's go back and do a little bit more work. Let's say, for example, and here are the other things that are turned off. Let's say that we want to put this back up at the top because users won't know it's there if we don't. And we can probably move the whole thing down a bit. I see our navigation is still up there, kind of hard to see, but it is there. Move our navigation. I think there's one more up there somewhere. Maybe I can find it, maybe I can't. Oh, there it is. Actually, that's the counter. Anything else? Oh, one more navigation button. There it is. All right, so what I'm going to do, I'm going to turn off the options I don't want. So let's go in, let's turn off captions. Let's turn off the counter. And you know what? I don't really necessarily need the navigation if I'm going to have the thumbnails, but we can leave the navigation on or off. It's up to you. So now if we preview this page, let it generate the HTML, open the slideshow up. or the page up. And again, as soon as we click on any thumbnail, it takes us into the slideshow. Here are navigation buttons to go back and forth. And once the user's done, unfortunately, there's no like, hey, close this. They just have to know to click anywhere outside of it, and then it goes back to the normal display. So Lightbox, I don't know. It's up to you. If you use it, that's how it works. If you don't use it, then you can use the standard slideshows. So everything else in the slideshow, here if we go back up to this one, let's look at any more options I may have missed. They're all enabled by default for swipe. What that means is that they are enabled on mobile devices, so the user can just swipe between the images. They don't have to tap navigation buttons. And we saw the other options so far. You can shuffle the order if you're not trying to show them in a specific order. That way they come up in a different order each time. That's good for an autoplay slideshow. One where the user's visiting the page and the slideshow is just going to start. That way it won't always start on the same image and won't always play in the same order. And last but not least, you could do free form thumbnails where the thumbnails could be kind of all over the page. You can rearrange them any way you want. They're not locked into a grid. And then that way the user can, tap on an image, it shows an image. Tap on another image somewhere else on the page, it shows the image. So you can kind of use the freeform method as triggers to show specific images that you're talking about throughout the page. And you can even perhaps pin that slideshow so that it moves up so it stays in place as the page is moving up and down. So all kinds of options for you to work on. And so we talked about, if we recap real quick, we talked about the full screen slideshow and its options, full width, which is kind of hidden, and basically the other or standard default slideshow options that have been in Muse pretty much since day one. So I hope that helps you now have a better understanding of how the various slideshow options can be used and how they can be used on different pages. And more important, if you're going to use full screen, you definitely want to work in layers. So with that, take care, and we'll catch you on the next one.